Welcome to our tutorial about primary source research. In this tutorial, we will discuss the criteria that define primary sources and will provide you with a few tips on what to look out for when you work with primary sources. Primary sources are first-hand testimonies or direct evidence in physical and electronic form. For this tutorial, we will focus on physical materials, such as letters, newspaper articles, photographs, diaries, pamphlets, broadsides, and other historical ephemera. But most of what we will discuss applies to electronic primary sources as well. Primary sources are usually created at the time when events are occurring, but can also be created later, is based on first-hand experiences. For example, the testimonies of Holocaust survivors in the USC Shoah Foundation Audiovisual Archive were recorded during the 1990s and are considered primary sources because they are interviews with the people who witnessed the Holocaust firsthand. Primary sources are not filtered through interpretation or evaluation, and usually present original thinking, reporting a discovery, or sharing new information. Let's address some of the benefits and challenges of working with primary sources. First, let's talk about the benefits of using primary sources. One of the greatest benefits when doing archival research and working with primary sources is that you could be the one to make a new connection or a new discovery. You could create original research findings, which you could also be the first to publish. Archives are a treasure trove for research, and there's still so much to discover in them. Hands-on work with historical artifacts can be incredibly rewarding. It allows you to make emotional and intellectual connections to the events and people at the core of your research. If you enjoy detective work or always wanted to be an archaeologist, archival research is perfect for you. But there are certainly also challenges to working with primary sources. First of all, it can be time-intensive to find out where the sources are located, and often you will have to travel to consult them, because unfortunately, not everything is digitized. Even when you have requested an archival box of rare materials, its content may not be what you thought it is when you requested it. Or you may have to peruse many boxes of materials just to find the tiny bit of information you were looking for. When working with older primary sources or primary sources on certain subject areas, keep in mind that the materials could be in a language that you may or may not be familiar with, and that many materials are handwritten, such as notes, letters, and postcards, which can be hard to read. The biggest challenge of all may be that you have to come to and carefully present your own conclusions about the materials you investigated. Very often, there are little or no secondary sources to rely on, but don't let that scare you. Working with primary sources is one of the most rewarding and fruitful forms of research, and our staff in Special Collections is always there to help and guide you. So let's talk about critically evaluating primary sources. When evaluating primary sources, it is important to approach them with a critical and skeptical eye. Consider the creator of the item, the intended audience for the item, and what it was used for. Ask yourself why it was preserved and acquired by the institution that owns it. Thinking through the possible answers of these questions can give you important clues and will help you reflect critically about the item or collections of materials you are researching. You never want to take something at face value, but you want to consider all aspects that led to the creation and preservation of a primary source. Lastly, it is very important to also consider what might be missing from the story being told by an item or a collection of primary sources. People often falsely assume that museums or libraries preserve history. Remember the role played by the people who decide to collect materials and decide to later donate them to the library. There's privilege in the opportunity to do so. The librarian acquiring an item or collection for the library also makes a decision, which may be led by the institution's collection priorities, and the librarian's bias may also play into that decision. Privilege plays a huge role in what materials come to special collections. Think about it. Who can afford to collect rare or valuable items? Who can afford to donate them to a library? What is more prestigious, collecting and preserving the history of esteemed faculty at an institution, or collecting records of student life? The gaps of missing perspectives in our collections are called archival silences, and we have dedicated a tutorial to the topic if you're interested in learning more. Over the last decade or so, Many special collections departments have realized that many stories have not yet been told, and many people, especially people from marginalized communities, have been represented falsely or negatively, or have not been represented at all in our collections. Special Collections at USC has also changed the way we select collections and materials for acquisitions in an effort to increase inclusion of underrepresented communities and diversity in our collections. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions or need research assistance, do reach out to us by email at specol@usc.edu. For more information on how to search, request, access, and analyze primary source materials at USC, please check out our other tutorials.